The head of the foreign ministry of the aggressor country Russia, Sergei Lavrov, stated that rumors about the poisoning of former Syrian dictator Bashar Assad allegedly do not correspond to reality. Earlier, the media reported that in September Assad was urgently taken to the hospital after a possible poisoning attempt. The head of the Russian foreign ministry said that the former Syrian dictator has no problems in Moscow and that no poisoning took place. Lavrov added that the Kremlin has provided asylum to Assad and his family, purely for humanitarian reasons. Sergei Lavrov also commented on the absence of Moscow's representatives at the summit in Egypt dedicated to concluding a peace agreement on the Gaza Strip. According to him, Russia was not invited. He said that the invitation was sent by the summit organizers. The leadership of Egypt, which coordinated its actions with other Arab initiators but primarily with the United States. It should be noted that this is the first statement from the head of the foreign ministry of the aggressor country after a long absence from the public sphere. The Telegram channel Kremlin Tabakerka previously reported that the Russian dictator Vladimir Putin was allegedly advised to arrest Lavrov for treason. According to the channel sources, at the very least, he faces dismissal. In particular, Lavrov is accused of allegedly committing treason and of hindering the establishment of Russian-American relations. The possible dismissal of the foreign minister may be connected to the power transition in the Kremlin. According to the Telegram channel General SVR, the alleged successor to the presidency of Russia is Dmitry Patrushev, who currently serves as Deputy Prime Minister of the Russian Federation. The channel reports that the end of the power transition is already near.
He's actually so incredibly ancient that he knew the Kremlin Führer back when he was still pretending to be a Democrat.
What is this? Have they completely lost their minds or what? It's just unbelievable.
Just like his balding boss in his chair, or rather in his stall, he's been there for over 20 years.
You know, I'm actually a horse. A shapeshifter.
Once a respected and influential diplomat who ruined his own reputation, obediently washing Puilos's dirty laundry. But
You could never make my husband do the laundry.
Yeah, Tsent would make him do it.
a showy traditionalist, a devoted family man, a script carrier, and just a God-fearing Christian.
Sergei Viktorovich Lavrov, who is the Distinguished Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation, is hereby awarded the prestigious Order of the Holy Prince Alexander Nevsky, First Class, by the Russian Orthodox Church.
In reality, an adulterer, clumsily hiding his mistress, or rather, even his second family.
A business trip to a diplomatic mission, yes, that's exactly what it says, a business trip at the age of just 13.
A debauchee and libertine who happily spends time on luxurious yachts in the company of powerful oligarchs and high-class prostitutes.
Nice work.
The living embodiment of Russian diplomacy and notorious arrogance. In other words, a boor and a lout, concealing himself behind diplomatic protocols, official suits and ties. One of the main accomplices of the infamous bunker villain who is actively promoting war on the international stage.
So, a ceasefire right now would mean only one thing. That a huge part of Ukraine would currently remain under the control of the Nazi regime.
A loyal, proven, and consistently reliable puppet of the vile little Putin, who has thoroughly discredited himself to such an extent that his master could easily throw him out like trash at any moment, or maybe even out the window.
Then tell me, what advice or recommendation can you perhaps give in this situation, please?
A hypocrite, manipulator, cynical liar, and war criminal who has been responsible for Russia's foreign policy for over 20 years.
So it's you that everyone is cursing. It's you who are to blame for everything.
A cowardly opportunist and careerist who figured it out even in his youth. The USSR is a multinational state where everyone is equal, but still, Russians are more equal than others.
I am Russian.
But let's not really kid ourselves.
Kalantarian or Kalantarov, that is the real surname of the head of the Russian Foreign Ministry. His father is a Georgian Armenian, and Lavrov himself is from Tbilisi. Sergei's childhood was spent on Ararat Street in the Armenian district of the city. Over time, the family ended up in the city of Noginsk in the Moscow region and later moved to Moscow, where Sergei's far-sighted mother, an employee of the USSR Ministry of Foreign Trade, enrolled her son in a school with advanced English studies, which Lavrov successfully graduated from, earning a silver medal.
I don't speak any languages, Your Honor.
It would seem all doors to the country's top universities were open to such a talented boy. That's true, but not to the elite ones. Especially not the Institute of International Relations. The boy's Caucasian roots could have put an end to his future brilliant diplomatic career. And so, not to tempt fate, Sergei Kalantarian became Lavrov, taking his mother's suitably traditional Russian surname. I'm narrow-minded. So just as with his very birth, Sergei owed his entry into diplomatic life to his mother. After her son graduated from MGIMO, it was she, using her connections in the Ministry of Foreign Trade, who helped Sergei get a job at the Soviet Foreign Ministry.
It will be them, not these, who put us in the defendant's seat, especially you diplomats.
Just a few years later, Lavrov would receive his first significant position at the USSR's mission to the UN. The collapse of the Soviet Union would hardly affect Sergei's career. He would automatically transition from a Soviet diplomat to a Russian one. Although, judging by the sweater Lavrov wore when he showed up in Alaska almost 35 years after the collapse of the evil empire, he still seems to be nostalgic for the socialist prison camp.
Sergei Viktorovich, is this your first time in Alaska? Twins, could you please tell us? Is it your first? I've been here before, I have. Do you like it?
There was absolutely nothing imperial about it at all. There was no discussion or talk whatsoever of any attempts to revive imperial thinking, as some people claim.
It was in the USA, on enemy soil, deep behind enemy lines, that the first daughter, Ekaterina, was born to the Russian ultra-patriot, from his official wife, Maria Lavrova. For a long time, with all his might, Sergei would pretend to be a true, upstanding family man and proclaim traditional values at every turn. But no matter how long you twist the rope, the end will show. Over time, journalists saw through the charade and discovered his second unofficial family, Lavrov's. But we'll talk about this corrupting influence of the West a bit later.
A little about myself. Split personality, constant nonsense. Erotomania.
After the collapse of the Soviet Union, in Yeltsin's new Russia, Lavrov becomes the permanent representative of the Russian Federation to the UN and Security Council. Sergei Viktorovich serves in this role for over 10 years, until 2004, when Putin appoints him Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Weren't you warned that I suffer from all kinds of nervous and mental illnesses?
The connections he built in New York and his extensive diplomatic experience did their job. On the international stage, Lavrov became a highly respected figure. At that time, few were able to see the lame nag and the dashing Bucephalus. The first warning signs that revealed the diplomat's true rude nature rang out in 2008, when during a conversation with the British minister, the head of the Russian Foreign Ministry got personal.
The Daily Telegraph described how, in 2008, the minister, in a phone conversation with the UK Foreign Secretary, spoke in an aggressive tone and used obscene language. Who are you to fucking lecture me? Who are you to tell me what to do?
You'd think that for any normal diplomat, such rude communication would be unacceptable, but not for the head of foreign affairs of Russia's ignorant little czar. For a St. Petersburg thug, being a boorish diplomat isn't a drawback. If anything, it's the opposite.
The streets of Leningrad taught me one rule. If a fight is truly inevitable, you have to strike first.
And not for nothing, Lavrov is the most resilient of Putin's ministers. A bunker dweller with a criminal past, he likes that his country's diplomacy is done in a way and language he understands.
To use slang, but still, we have this saying. A guy said, a guy did it, right?
After landing the position of foreign minister, and with it unlimited influence, Lavrov, just like most top officials in the Russian Federation, set about improving his own personal life and well-being. No, not the lives of ordinary Russians, but his own. And also those of his numerous relatives and mistresses.
I can't believe it. Really? Such crocodile appetites.
For many years, Lavrov's private life, just like that of Russia's main Führer Putler, was almost a state secret. His official wife Maria and daughter Ekaterina lead very private lives. The head of the family made sure they had cushy positions, and so I bought their silence. And the second one to my real but unofficial family.
This is truly a lot of money and a lot of trust. Young men.
Lavrov's mistress, or rather his real but unofficial wife, is called Svetlana Polyakova. Journalists from the Alexei Navalny Foundation claim that they have been together for more than 20 years. It is Svetlana who is regarded in the highest circles of Russian politics, and in fact, in the foreign ministry as the only wife of the head. The woman is present at many official events, up to and including meetings with the Russian dictator. Thanks to Lavrov, a wide circle of Svetlana Polyakova's family constantly uses government planes as if they were their own private tour bus.
Not only the mistress is taken to the most important interstate negotiations, but also her mother and daughter. And in addition, an 18-year-old niece mistress of Lavrov travels the world on behalf of the foreign ministry. Her name is Valeria Polyakova. She flew to Azerbaijan on a foreign ministry plane as an accompanying family member. In March 2019, she flew with him to Vienna. And in December 2016, she flew to Hamburg on Lavrov's plane, on a business trip to a diplomatic mission. That's exactly what it says. On a business trip at the age of 13.
Polyakova owns a 260 square meter apartment in the center of Moscow, a dacha in the Moscow region, and an impressive collection of cars. The minister didn't neglect Svetlana's daughter either. Her 22-year-old stepson Ippolini, in the most prestigious district of London, Lavrov bought an apartment. Its value is over £4 million sterling.
Remember, gentlemen, this country will, as we all know, be ruined by corruption and...
Still, at whose expense is Sergei Viktorovich living it up? After all, the minister's official salary wouldn't even be enough to buy jewelry for Svetlana, his mistress.
Just give.
Could you please give me my money now? Thank you. I'm really very poor.
It turns out Lavrov is the personal escort of billionaire minister Oleg Deripaska. For the oligarch, having trouble getting an American visa is no big deal. He simply sends his errand boy using his connections. The foreign ministry steps in to resolve the issue. Western sanctions against Deripaska's company and Lavrov. He throws himself into the fray, publicly denouncing his opponents and calling their actions Russophobia, reminiscent of genocide. In return, Deripaska pays for all the whims of his pet minister, including vacations on a luxury yacht that costs about $500,000 a week to rent. He throws in some cash for private jet travel and allocates funds to the minister's family as well, for Lavrov to buy up elite real estate in currently decadent Europe.
When Deripaska's company had a conflict with the authorities in Guinea, where he has bauxite and aluminum production, Lavrov rushed there personally to sort things out. And he got what he wanted. Using his status, he met with the president of Guinea and resolved all of Deripaska's problems. Well, it wasn't all for nothing after all. After all, Deripaska has been taking his family on vacations for years.
Deripaska also has business interests in Jamaica. There too, Lavrov is lobbying on his behalf. He secured preferences for Rusal in alumina mining.
But all this, as they say, is just family business. But what about Lavrov's main area of professional activity? On the international stage. Here, things are pretty bleak for Sergei. After the start of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, the Kremlin's talking horse completely lost it. All remnants of his former authority are gone.
If I remember correctly, though I might be mistaken, but I think Hitler also had Jewish blood. That means absolutely nothing. We have long since... We've heard the wise Jewish saying that the most passionate anti-Semites are usually, as is often observed, Jews themselves. In
his hatred for Ukrainians, Lavrov has lied and tangled himself up so much that he managed to deeply offend Jews as well, for which, as a result, his master Putin himself was forced to apologize personally. All in all, the once all-powerful minister of a mighty country has become an outcast and a laughingstock for everyone. You know, the war that we are trying to stop is not one that we began or wanted. It was started against us, and those responsible have used the Ukrainian people in this conflict, making them suffer as a result. Our intention has always been to bring an end to the fighting and to restore peace, not only for ourselves but also for those who have been caught in the middle. We are committed to doing everything we can to stop this war and to protect everyone affected by it. What real difference does it make thought Lavrov. After all, Joachim Ribbentrop's ultimate end was no better than that of Joseph Goebbels's.
Among the values that Ukraine promotes under Zelensky, let me remind you, are also the values of Nazism.
Karma is an inescapable thing. According to independent journalists, 75-year-old Lavrov has begun to experience serious health problems. And the horse, racing against Don Don, gallops confidently and swiftly. To hell. The first symptoms of the chief diplomat of the swamp's illness were detected back in 2022 during his visit to Bali. That was where the G20 summit was held. According to Russian media, information spread about Lavrov being hospitalized in a local hospital. As a result, the foreign ministry's press drunkard Maria Zakharova hurriedly rushed to deny everything and published a video supposedly showing her healthy boss. But the sight of a gaunt Sergei Viktorovich only fueled suspicions. Well, and
for about 10 years now, they've been writing that our president is ill. This is, in fact, a game that's nothing new in politics.
Now, information is currently being widely circulated all over Russian telegram channels about the possible demise of the old nag.
Putin was advised to put Lavrov in prison for treason. The head of the foreign ministry is upset and afraid that a missile will kill him. In
the Kremlin jar of spiders, Lavrov has plenty of enemies, and it seems they've sensed that the old man isn't what he used to be. And in Putin's criminal circle, they know exactly what to do with worn-out horses.
Worn-out horses get shot after all, don't they?
Be that as it may, the days of the aging, increasingly frail old man who currently occupies the minister's chair are slowly coming to an end. The only real question that remains is whether President Putin will allow his loyal, long-serving old steed to retire honorably for health reasons, or perhaps following a common and well-known tradition among the Russian elite, the one who knows too much will, quite suddenly, fall out of a Moscow high-rise window.
Yet another mysterious death. In Moscow, the vice president of Transneft, Andrei Badalov, has died. According to telegram channels close to law enforcement, he fell from the balcony of a 17th floor apartment on Rubliovskoye Highway.
I want to remind you that this video is created for entertainment purposes and contains elements of satire and irony. All facts and events are presented in a hyperbolized or exaggerated manner to convey a comedic or dramatic effect. We do not aim to mislead anyone in any way, but simply wish to emphasize humor and lightheartedness. Please take this with a smile and a sense of fun.
There are different ways to look at this. One could say that the horsemen of the apocalypse are already on their way. European leaders, they're all spineless and cowardly puppets. These bloody degenerates or brainless freaks will put Europe in its place. NATO will fall apart and victory will be ours.
An unremarkable lawyer who, like his old acquaintance, a pathetic and boring KGB man, owes his career to Anatoly Sobchak.
Misha, let's redo everything. Your face looks boring.
A grey office clerk who unexpectedly slipped into the heights of Russian power. Well,
this is just some bland crap.
A fan of enemy American gadgets and technologies, for his fondness for which he earned the nickname Ifonia. Now we can see here. Well, he's not there yet. Yeah, we're setting it up. Hi, Torg. Yeah, hi, Torg. In words, a fierce fighter against corruption, but in reality a fetishist and a grabber, obsessed with luxury and wealth.
There once was a pirate, Greedy Billy. But the truth is, nobody liked Billy.
A pseudo-liberal and a hypocritical supporter of democratic values and reforms.
This is the principle. Freedom is better than lack of freedom. These words are the quintessence of human experience.
He's not your diamond. He's one of the most cynical, cruel, unhinged, and bloodthirsty servants of Putin.
I'm a terrible person.
Really?
Yes. Kieran the Despot.
A fallen alcoholic and a laughingstock for everyone, who at one time could have become a real threat to the unlimited power of the bunkered Tsar.
Dmitry Anatolievich, I really do have disagreements with you, but I will make a decision regarding your proposal after consulting with the Prime Minister.
You know what? You can consult with anyone you want with the Prime Minister, but as long as I'm president, what decisions? I make them myself. Dmitry Anatolievich Medvedev, Putin's temporary placeholder in the president's chair of the RFI. A cowardly puppet who never dared to challenge his puppeteer, even after reaching the very top of the food chain. Dmitry Medvedev was born on September 14, 1965 in Leningrad. At school, he wasn't particularly memorable, just an average, boring, good student. And according to his teachers, he didn't really interact much with his classmates.
He tried very hard, dedicating all his time to studying. You could rarely catch him outside with the other kids. He resembled a little old man.
Not distinguished by any particular intelligence or quick-wittedness, the little frail old man still managed to realize that his main assets for achieving his goals were discipline, perseverance, and helpfulness, which meant he needed to look for a patron.
On your knees, worm.
After finishing school, Medvedev enrolled in the law faculty of the Zhdanov Leningrad State University. How he managed to do that with such talents remains a mystery to this day. Although it's clear he didn't do it without the help of his father, a professor at the Leningrad Technological Institute.
Well, it's not my fault that I'm his son. You don't get to choose your parents, although personally, I'm happy with mine.
Back in high school and later at university, the future fierce fighter against FEGs, freaks, drug dealers, and Anglo-Saxons developed a serious passion for Western culture, especially music. And in general, Dima started his adult life as a fervent supporter of democracy and the freedoms that come with it. When I first started listening to Deep Purple, honestly, I could never have imagined that one day we'd be sitting at a table like this. I used to DJ at school dances. I would submit a list of musicians to the Komsomol committee for approval, listing those who would be played at the dance. After receiving his law degree, Medvedev found a place under the wing of the ambitious and promising Leningrad politician Anatoly Sobchak. They all met at the same university where the future mayor of St. Petersburg gave lectures on civil law.
We need to raise the issue that the heads of the State Security Committee should no longer be part of the country's top political leadership.
Sobchak's campaign team put Diamond in charge of advertising and campaigning. Of course, not on the scale you might imagine. All that was entrusted to the young but diligent lawyer was putting up posters and handing out flyers throughout the northern capital.
I have a small but important task for you.
A few years later, thanks to Anatoly Sobchak, Medvedev met Putin. At that time, Putin, who was a KGB officer, had just returned from East Germany and also joined the new mayor's team. It was then that Medvedev first managed to properly please Russia's future leader.
Here you go, please.
In 1992, a group of Leningrad deputies accused Putin of blatant corruption. The fate, and even more so the future career of the villain, was hanging by a thread. And then he appeared. Diamond the lawyer. The unprincipled and obsequious Medvedev literally threw himself onto the firing line to protect his older buddy.
Licenses were issued by our St. Petersburg Committee for External Economic Relations, that is, by Putin. The goods, these goods, were unfortunately sent abroad as shipments, but the food never arrived.
Rumor has it, precisely thanks to the diligent work of lawyer Medvedev, Putin managed to hush up this scandal. The career of the former KGB officer was saved.
Thanks to Medvedev and most importantly to Sobchak's patronage, Putin was let off the hook. And he didn't forget the favor. In '99, when Yeltsin, who had finally drunk himself into oblivion and descended into senility, drunkenly appointed the despicable Putin as his successor, Putin brought all his St. Petersburg cronies with him to Moscow, including Medvedev.
The streets of Leningrad taught me one rule. If a fight is inevitable, you have to strike first.
Putin saw Medvedev as a loyal, obedient, and extremely accommodating accomplice. That's why he rewarded his partner in shady St. Petersburg dealings with a truly lucrative position on the Gazprom board of directors. In time, Dmitry would go on to head the main gas company of Erefia.
I would like to officially be a shareholder of Gazprom JSC.
However, Medvedev didn't get to take bribes and siphon money from the gas flows for too long. Already during Putler's first 2 terms, Demon began to rapidly climb the Kremlin career ladder. First, he would head the presidential administration, become a member of the Security Council, and then even take the post of deputy prime minister. Step by step and with confidence, Medvedev would gain more and more power, influence, and money. Surprised? A gray mediocrity, but that's exactly the kind of people Putin surrounded himself with, just as long as they weren't smarter than him.
This foolish fanatic would do his job.
In 2007, before he had completely trampled the Russian constitution, Putin had to choose a successor. This was no easy task. After all, he needed someone who, in 4 years, wouldn't put up a fight and would hand power back without a second thought. The indecisive and somewhat cowardly Medvedev was the perfect fit for this role. And although at the time many leaned toward the stronger candidacy of Sergei Ivanov, who oversaw the military and had proven himself a tough and self-sufficient politician, Putin's choice was a foregone conclusion.
The airborne forces are expecting not only organizational changes, I mean the transition of most of your units to a contract-based system of staffing, but, and perhaps this is the most important thing, re-equipment with new technology.
The secret of Medvedev's success is paradoxical but simple. It's much easier to take power away from an unremarkable, unambitious weakling. But a self-confident and decisive Ivanov is a threat. And that's why Alk-Demon was sent to serve as a temporary placeholder in the presidential chair.
I'm a patsy. I've spent my whole life doing time for others. That's my profession, to suffer for others. Don't worry, Grandpa. So you're a front man?
Against the backdrop of the authoritarian, totalitarian KGB man Putin, Dmitry Medvedev seemed to Russians like a true liberal and a democratic leader. The naive ones simply didn't realize that nothing in the country had changed. They just changed the name on the main sign. But at the same time, all the real power remained with Putin, who temporarily became
Prime Minister.
Diamond wasn't just pretending to be a Democrat and making liberal speeches. He tried to back up his words with actions, though only in public or on TV. Here he is, playfully eating burgers with the American president in a friendly setting. He dances with gusto with comedian Garrick Martirosyan to American Boy. And here he is, already promising Russians a bright future and a happy path to civilization. But at the same time as telling tales about freedom and democracy, Dimka, as will become clear later, changes the constitution in the interests of his master and extends the presidential term from 4 to 6 years. That the king has no clothes, or more precisely, that he's more like a bargain basement version of the Queen of England, who in reality doesn't decide anything in the country, will become clear a little later. In the mass media, the duo of Pina and Diamond would be dubbed a tandemocracy. And while the figurehead Medvedev is just a ceremonial general showing his face, it's actually Prime Minister Putin who's running the show. President of Russia, Vladimir Dmitry Anatolyevich Medvedev. Jokes about the strange tandem at the helm of the country would flood the media platforms where it was still possible to speak the truth.
It's just that today at lunch, finishing off the Kolobox, the bear and I thought we'd come up with something else to mess around with.
Even the laziest person would laugh at the strange bond between this sweet pair.
They didn't hide their tender friendship, sang rock, milked cows, Twitter, sweaters, Macintosh, skiing, dancing, whatever you like.
And looking at their positions, it's not hard to guess who's the active one and who's the passive one in this pair. Many still believe that it wasn't President Medvedev who decided to attack Georgia, but Prime Minister Putin. But the would-be warrior did his best to act like a Terminator. He's not your Diamond. He tried to convince everyone that he made this decision on his own. He only informed Putler about it.
Right now, civilians are dying in South Ossetia. Women, children, the elderly. And most of them are citizens of the Russian Federation. In accordance with the Constitution and federal law, as the President of the Russian Federation, I am obliged to protect the lives and dignity of Russian citizens wherever they may be.
Over time, Dmitry would clearly come to enjoy the role of master and ruler of destinies. He'll grow bolder, and then to the fullest, he'll play out his long-suppressed wounded pride. Do you
have anything else?
No, I just wanted to respond to your remark.
No, don't respond to mine.
For me, it's not a remark anymore, it's a verdict.
Understood, thank you.
The floor is yours for remarks.
And everything I say is cast in granite.
And it only escalated from there. Medvedev really let loose and even dared to go after Putin's deputy prime minister, Alexei Kudrin. This was the first alarming signal for Putin, and the first publicly demonstrated challenge to the boss.
You know what? You can consult with anyone you like, even the Prime Minister, but as long as I am President, I make these decisions myself. Right now, you've asked me to make a decision. I've stated my decision, so let me repeat once again. You need to make up your mind, and do it very quickly. And give me your answer today.
This time, Medvedev is clearly trying to win over the voters. He's doing everything he can to show his openness and to set himself apart from Putin. Unlike his secretive predecessor, who hides his children, wife, and numerous mistresses from the Russian public, Dmitry is happy to show off his family. And
after all, it is the family that is the essential condition for the harmonious and happy development of any child.
Medvedev's wife, Svetlana, becomes a true First Lady of Russia. Moscow hasn't seen anything like this since the days of Gorbachev. Dima truly loves Svetlana sincerely. Just consider one of his yachts, which he named after his beloved.
It's a Princess 32M model. It already costs $11 million. At the exchange rate at the time of purchase, that's 630 million rubles, and with customs fees, nearly 900 million rubles. It was imported in the summer of 2015, and believe it or not, it's also called Fatinia. To my shame, I didn't immediately understand where this name even came from, but it turned out to be simple. Fatinia is the church version of the name Svetlana.
Medvedev also doesn't hide his only son, Ilya. Until 2022, the son of the former president of the Russian Federation, following the age-old tradition of the Russian elite, lived, studied, worked, and paid taxes in the United States of America.
I'm staying. I'm going to live here.
After the start of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, the Americans showed Ilyusha the door. The would-be patriot, having gotten nothing, returned to Mother Russia, where without much hesitation, he quickly switched from being an American boy to a true patriot and joined the ranks of United Russia. In general, using power to enrich one's own family is a hallmark of the Kremlin elite. In addition to the yacht Svetlana, the fierce anti-corruption fighter, as Medvedev called himself, acquired several palaces in various picturesque regions of Russia. Their total value, attention please, is over 15 billion rubles. And
the total value of the entire estate is 7 billion rubles. This is actually one of the largest houses we've ever filmed. And considering its location at an altitude of 1.5 kilometers, it simply has no equal. And by the way, take a look at how similar Medvedev's Rublyovka house and his mountain residence Sikako are to each other.
But besides palaces, yachts, and other luxuries, Medvedev has another passion: alcohol. Apparently, Dmitry Anatolievich consumes it on an industrial scale. And in order not to gild the palms of Russian liquor and vodka barons, the miserly Alkodemon provided himself with his own production. In addition to the endless vineyards bought by this true Russian patriot in hostile Italy, Medvedev produces his own moonshine, which the modest man named after his beloved self: Moonshine Medved.
Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev, in his spare time at the Milovka estate, distills moonshine in batches, which he then gifts to members of the government. This was investigated by the publication Pricked. Here, in fact, is that very moonshine, naturally, with the label Medvedev himself.
But let's return to Dmitry's official presidential activities. In the West, they didn't look with hope at the figure of Putin's more liberal democratic placeholder for long. At first, everyone was shocked by the aggression against Georgia. Then there were the undemocratic constitutional amendments to extend the presidential term. And it became clear to everyone that Diamond was no better than the bunker villain and was simply playing his assigned role.
Weren't you warned that I suffer from every nervous and mental illness?
A small glimmer of hope appeared in 2011. During the Arab Spring, which began in the Middle East and North African countries. Right before the overthrow of Muammar Gaddafi, the Libyan dictator friendly to Putin. In March, the UN Security Council votes on a resolution to conduct a military operation aimed at protecting civilians. By Medvedev's order, Moscow's representatives in the Security Council do not veto this decision, clearing the way for NATO troops to carry out the mission. At the same time, Prime Minister Putin fiercely and publicly criticizes and tramples on the resolution.
This Security Council resolution is, without a doubt, deficient in form. If you look at what is written there, it immediately becomes clear that it allows everyone to take any and all actions against a sovereign state. And honestly, you know, it reminds me of a medieval call for a crusade.
For this, the Petersburg boss unexpectedly, and almost for the first time in his political career, gets a thank you. Will be humiliatingly reprimanded, and by none other than his own former underling, now boss, Dmitry Medvedev.
Under no circumstances should expressions be used that essentially lead to a clash of civilizations like crusades and so on. This is unacceptable. Otherwise, things could end up much worse than what is happening today.
Then, for a brief moment, it seemed that on the eve of another election, Medvedev went all in and actually dared to challenge his authoritative overseer. But in the end, he didn't have the guts. And the FSB's skill in using Novichok and other poisoning methods sobered up Diamond's cowardly soul. He disgracefully and obediently relinquished his powers and submitted to the mad little Tsar.
It hurts. Right now, it really...
In 2012, the swap happened. Putin reclaimed his throne, appointing Medvedev as the country's prime minister. Of course, he prudently reduced the prime minister's powers so that Dimka wouldn't pull any more tricks.
But I'm actually right.
As prime minister, Medvedev's duties were reduced to a humiliating minimum. To prove and show Russians that all that freedom and democracy in the Russian Federation was nothing more than the ravings of a mad drunkard. Poor Diamond. He not only lost power, but is now forced to tremble with fear every single day. After Putin sensed even the slightest danger from him, no one would give a damn about his life. Wagner's leader Yevgeny Prigozhin knows this for sure. Now, for the sake of his own survival, Dmitry Anatolievich is simply obliged to do everything he can to prove that he is absolutely harmless and inoffensive, and has turned into a ridiculous character who has become a laughingstock for everyone.
We just won't find the money, but we'll find the money, or we'll make the money. You just hang in there, all the best to you, and please take care.
Over time, Putin took away Medvedev's position as prime minister as well, and he finally lost all power and influence. Crushed and humiliated, Al-Qadiman hit rock bottom, becoming a devotee of the Green Serpent. And that would have been the end for him. He would have simply drowned in his own puddle in a drunken stupor, if not for Zhirinovsky's death. A vacancy for the role of the evil jester unexpectedly opened up in the Kremlin, someone who would voice the delusions of the Russian Tsar that he himself could not say out loud. To frighten the West with nuclear ashes and the utter irrationality of the Russian authorities, and also to be rude to all Western leaders.
Congratulations to all friends of Russia, and especially to the a-hole Minister of Defense of Belgium, on the successful test of the Poseidon underwater vehicle with a nuclear power unit. Just like the Burevestnik, the Poseidon can truly be considered a doomsday weapon.
But honestly, times are not what they used to be. And it's time for the Kremlin thugs to get used to the fact that even in the most civilized countries in the world, there are now gentlemen who can make punks and boors answer for their words.
U.S. nuclear submarines have moved closer to Russia.
I would like to remind you that this video is created for entertainment purposes and contains elements of satire and irony. All facts and events are presented in a hyperbolized or exaggerated form to convey a comedic or dramatic effect. Our goal is not to mislead, but to highlight humor. Please take it with a smile.